Who's ready to win the day in sports? I know you are. Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com, Monday through Friday, noon to 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm Justin Fensterman, and let's break everything down from a fantasy sports perspective. What is going on, everybody? My name is Justin Fensterman, and welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily here on the Elite Plus Network, powered by the good old FG, FantasyGuru.com. New year, same Fensty, same Wild Wednesday show that we have going on. In fact, you can catch Fantasy Sports Daily all week long right here, and then up at the site at the Elite Plus Network right afterwards too, once we are done answering your questions, getting you ready to dominate the day. Again, I'm Justin Fensterman. Ray Flowers hosts Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. I take the middle on Wednesday. And now that we're at the point where the calendar year has turned, meaning we're in playoff fantasy football mode here at FantasyGuru.com, and still time for all of you to get involved because Jeff Mans has his playoff rankings and his Wildcard weekend rankings up on the site. So to get involved, it's $20. You get everything we offer for DFS, for wagering throughout the postseason, and those rankings that I just explained. Speaking of, by the way, fantasy football never dies, even in the off season. That's why we make sure to always have that content flowing. In fact, a little bit later on, Rich Maletto, the fantasy Bosco, is going to stop by to hang out and to talk about some of his favorite DFS plays for the weekend and some of his playoff strategies, because there are many different contests and formats that you can enter. I enter a couple of contests here, one of them being a one and done where you use the player one time and that's it. And then I'm also in a kind of set them and leave them format where you fill your lineup up, but that's it. You don't touch it, kind of set it and forget it. And that's more best ball style. And speaking of best ball, by the way, got to tell you about Drafters. We're partnering up with Drafters once again, like we tend to do. And Drafters right now has this amazing contest you see right there, a chance to win $300,000 and draft with some of the Fantasy Guru staff. You got promo code ELITE right there. Get a little percentage chopped off when you deposit to Drafters, and you can play many different kinds of contests there. They had best ball for basketball, for football, and now definitely for the NFL playoffs. I was actually in a draft yesterday or 2 days ago. The days all clumped together, but I was in one. So I got a lineup in there right now. I got a team in there, a best ball draft there. I kind of messed up the draft a little bit, or did I? Did I mess up? Because Matthew Stafford, I might have picked a little bit earlier, but now the big question is, we've seen this matchup before. This time, though, the Rams were double-digit favorites here on the road going into Super Wildcard weekend. Are they going to be able to answer the bell and be able to advance right there? And that's why I made sure that once I kind of was panicking a little bit, the clock going fast, I had a snap decision to make. Few of the QBs that I liked beforehand were taken. And so I made sure a couple of rounds later to follow that up with a quarterback of a contending team, making sure that for someone like Bo Nix, I got him in there just in case those Rams get eliminated early. That's what I'm all about there. So you could go and you can be part of it too. The drafts, they happen very, very quickly, and they're fun too. They don't take a while at all. You're kind of in and out, and that's about it. So that's why I was competing in one on Drafters. Make sure you go, you sign up, use promo code ELITE to get a percentage chopped off right there. Like I said, Rich Maletto, speaking of chopping, we're chopping the show. Half basketball, half football. That's what it's going to be for the next few weeks here on Wednesdays. And then once we reach the Super Bowl, that's where, once the conference championships are over, that's where it's going to be only basketball. Ray Flowers is going to be crushing a lot of baseball on this show. So for me, I'll balance it out a little bit with some basketball midweek. Wednesdays tend to be the largest slate of the week, or at least top 2 day of a large slate of the week. And tonight, here at FantasyGuru.com, we've got a split ski going on here with 9 games on DraftKings and 12 games on FanDuel. Still working out a few things. Going to talk about that here in just a second. So here's the big board of what we got going on today here on Fantasy Sports Daily. And let's start out with what happened last night. A couple of things happened last night. Number one, now entering NBA betting pools here at FantasyGuru.com in our Discord, Jeff Mans put it in one of his famous alt-line parlays, and now on the board for Jeff Mans, night one, win one. And it definitely helps when your boy has a 1-3 night And then Pappy Man swoops in with a nice plus money parlay for everybody to win and go home happy for the late night hammer. But let me explain to you what happened last night. Because this, when you talk about this, you know what? I'm going to take the dog off so you can see just how upset I am about all this. Last night, I did something I normally don't do. When you are battling the Washington Wizards, you have to know whether it's a DFS play or a prop bet. You have to know that those minutes, those expectations, you see a player playing 35, 37 minutes against a team like the Wizards, you probably have to lower those expectations. And then you have to decide whether or not your favorite players for that game are going to produce in volume. Some of them can, some of them can't. Let me explain. So last night, I was having a very tough time with the betting board, figuring it out and everything like that. Some nights you just do. You just do. And I'm not someone that's just going to force 10 bets in. I don't check boxes. Okay, I don't do that. Every piece of work I do means something to me. I wear it like skin because honestly, that's what means a lot. My work is my bond. Your work is often your bond. And so I take it very seriously, sometimes too seriously, like last night. We all have nights. I was having a few winning nights, 2-1 nights. Yeah, I'm happy about that. Always want to sweep. But then last night I had a 1-3 night. And I had 3 different player props in the Washington Wizards Orlando Magic matchup. And the reason why I'm talking to all this is not just to complain about it, but I'm going to, in a way, let you in on my process, what led me to those bets and how things didn't work out. It's almost a good lesson when it comes to wagering. And by the way, that's what you get when you go to fantasyguru.com, because the write-ups that I do not only are good for DFS, but they also talk about it for the possibility of wagering too for player props, which is why you should read the articles that we put out there at fantasyguru.com for our sports for that reason. Dual threat right there, those articles. So last night I made a decision, and that was that while I thought that Washington was going to lose the game against Orlando and the spread was at a medium area and around that 6-7 mark there, I do it all the time. Oh, I get it. All you kids, 6-7. I probably didn't have to say that because all the kids that even care about that are in school. But trends, they're all the rage. They're all in right now. But going back to this Magic Wizards game, I thought the Magic would be up. I didn't think, though, because I know that they've had major defensive issues lately. I didn't think that they would just be up by 25 points against Washington the whole time. No Jalen Suggs. I thought that Washington and their ability to score against a team in Orlando that's ranked in the bottom 10 via defensive rating, which is weird to think about, over the last 10 games. And so looking at all of that, I said, you know what? I think even with Brooklyn tomorrow, meaning tonight, that Orlando will still be in this game. They need wins, and Orlando has a golden opportunity. Back-to-backs are normally not ideal. But when your back-to-back is 2 of the bottom feeders in the Eastern Conference, like Washington and Brooklyn, even when you're the Orlando Magic missing a couple of starters, you should be able to beat both teams. Let me explain what happened last night. So last night, first quarter stayed close like I thought it would. Then we saw just how piss-poor Orlando's defense has gotten. A lot of open shots from Washington. They were shooting really well, above 50% for a while in this game. And they, at one point, really stormed away from Orlando. So in the third quarter, while the Magic starters are still trading baskets with the Washington starters, the Magic, halfway through the third quarter, decide to put their bench in for a little bit. Okay, Wizards are up by 20-something at this point. I kind of get it. Then the Orlando Magic and their bench shows why Washington is one of the most vulnerable teams defensively in the league, because the Magic bench brings back the Magic in this game. And it's not to a point where, oh, wow, they made this amazing run and by 2 minutes left in the game is tied. No, by the time this game was a couple of minutes in the fourth quarter, all of a sudden what was a 23-point game is now down to an 8-point game. Okay, so now Jamal Mosley, the Magic coach, who I respect, by the way, I mean, we could go over what's happened with this team and what's changed, but that's for another day. But I'm all about these guys are playing well, probably better than your starters. Keep them in. Let's see what happens. Okay, so they stayed competitive and they slowly crept back further and further and further. And then I'm sitting there with about 6-7 minutes to go, obviously tweaking out because we've got 3 props on the line. We had a Wendell Carter rebound prop. We had a Desmond Bane, who was our hero last year in Memphis, now in Orlando, different situation, but there are enough injuries where that usage has gone up. So Desmond Bane, we were on not 1, but 2 props for him. And so we're sitting there, and the starters haven't played now for a long time, and it gets to about the 6-minute mark, and I'm just thinking these starters, for some reason, are not coming back. They've got Brooklyn tomorrow night. But here's the problem with that. It's not like Orlando is in a position, whether they're full strength or not, it's not like Orlando is in a position where they can be throwing games, because that's what they did. That's what they did. The deficit became 4, and the starters never came back. Paolo Banchero never came back into that game. And you can give me these numbers, and I'm sure some of you have seen it, and I've talked about it a little bit. There are numbers out there that the Magic are better with Paolo off the floor. Fine. But when you're facing this vulnerable Washington defense that they've had for the last few years, and you come within 4 or 5, bring the starters in. You've now saved the starters. Your bench gave you a clear chance. Bring back your starters. You were given by the schedule gods a gift, having a back-to-back on the road. I don't care. Washington, Brooklyn, that ask any team in the NBA, that's an ideal back-to-back, because both of these teams have major defensive issues. Both of them. So, in a way, and Brooklyn's played, I got to give it to Brooklyn. They show up sometimes, but still, 2 very winnable games. And so, we're sitting there and no starters are coming back in. And of course, what happens? The Wizards outlast. Wizards are still playing their starters. I get that Orlando has a game the next night, but the purpose of managing minutes like this is so that, yeah, you're supposed to be up on Washington. Then you manage the minutes. Instead of pulling the starters when it's a 23-point lead, pull the starters part of the way through the fourth quarter when it's about a 16, 18-point lead. Not where you are essentially a 5, 6, 7 seeded team and you can use the 2 wins because it's only going to get harder. And let me tell you, from game 1, where I believe they faced the Miami Heat to start the season, I thought that game was going to be like a 1990 style rough and rugged game. No, these teams were flying, and you noticed it immediately that the Magic were moving differently. They're not the same defensive team. Franz Wagner's out. Yes, Suggs is out. I understand. But still, even when they were in, they were not the same team. This team failed last night. This team took an opportunity and they passed them. And I know it's sour grapes because we had 3 props on it. I know that Carter was very much on pace. And if he played another 5 to 7 minutes like I thought he would, not even thinking he played 30, I bet that prop going, boom, 28 minutes, he should be able to get it. Did it last time against them. Should be able to get it. Was rebounding like a monster leading up to it. He played 20 minutes, and that was that. He was also a core play, and Banchero was a core play too. I was sitting there deciding between, do I go Luka? Do we go all the way to the top of the board and go Luka Doncic in a good matchup? Or do we go with Banchero, who's a few thousand cheaper and also in a good matchup that shouldn't necessarily be a blowout that he can produce in volume? He played about 24, 25 minutes. You saw the minutes streamline and split, and they still lost. They're down by 25 points in the fourth quarter. I get it. They've had injury issues, Banchero included. Most of this team over the last 2 years, pretty much the entire bingo board, it's bingo. They've all been out with some kind of injury. But these are situations where he can win the game. So that's what happened. And in my estimation, I'll say this. There are nights where I just suck with my picks. I can admit that. Every analyst has those nights. They just don't admit it, a lot of them. You just see when they win, and that's it. I'm not talking about everyone. But there's a good handful of analysts out there that will never admit when they lose because they're trying to sell something. I'm human. I bleed just like all of you. I'm going to miss. But last night when I attacked that matchup, I thought I had it pegged for DFS, for betting, and I was tweaking out a little bit in Discord only because I was so sad that leading into my final bet before Jeff Mans jumped in, I was just so sad that we were already at an 0-3 night, not because the players sucked, but because the coaching decisions sucked. And you know what? You watch them go into Brooklyn and completely dominate them and play more minutes than they probably should now to overcompensate. They handled that the wrong way. They absolutely handled that the wrong way last night. And the biggest thing is, and by the way, you've been getting killed at this point, sign up at fantasyguru.com. Because before last night, the previous few nights, we were having winning nights right there. So I could say that right there, Greg. But you know what? Banchero last night, yeah, we were relying on Banchero very much. But Banchero wasn't even a prop last night because his props, to be honest with all of you, are a bit too high. But when it came to a Desmond Bane and when it came to a Wendell Carter especially, there are nights where you can play Wendell Carter props. Last night was that night. Had he gotten a few more minutes, he was at 7 rebounds. We needed him to get to 9 right there. Thank you for letting me vent about that because I hate when we lose. We hit the LeBron rebound prop, and so because of that, we hit the LeBron rebound prop. I'll take it. Jeff Mans hits his alt-line parlay. His was plus 120. My LeBron prop was plus 115. So at least there's that, and we ended on a good note. But it just sucks because this is why I normally don't invest and triple down in games like this. But the Magic, we clearly see that they have issues. Meaning, what can we learn? That we can attack the Orlando Magic too on the defensive end. Even if the pace and the game environment is not as appealing for the opposition, the Magic, and I'm not just saying this from last night, the reason why I went so in on this game is because I knew the Magic were having defensive issues, but I didn't think they'd be getting waxed by the Wizards for most of that game. And then the bench brings them back. Yeah, just crazy right there. So let's talk about tonight with what we're looking at from the DFS side. And I'll remind all of you right now that maybe you're done at this point with football. You're all set for the year. Number one, I told you about the plan that we have that's $20. Well, we also have an MVP plan too, because not only do we have hoops cooking, but we've got hockey, we're going to have PGA, MMA, racing. You can get it all for $60 a month or $200 for the year when you sign up and you go to that link that you see right there, or support at fantasyguru.com to become an MVP. You get everything we have to offer: articles, podcasts on the site, Discord access. I have my Fensty's Basketball Diaries podcast that's exclusive to Fantasy Guru subscribers that comes out every single Thursday. And to get that, become an MVP. You get everything we offer except for NFL and MLB. Everything else, the Discord, the betting, the DFS content, that access you get when you become an MVP, and you can try it out for the month and it'll pay off itself. And you know what? I'll say this, and I know this is kind of like an eye-rolling comment and I don't care, but if it doesn't pay off for you, because everybody bets differently. I'm a small stakes bettor. That's what I have budgeted for. All right. I'm not Daddy Warbucks over here. So some of you are, though, and more power to you. But I'll just say this. If it doesn't pay off financially after that first month, I guarantee you'll at least know how to value these props differently, speaking from the basketball end. You'll at least know what to look for. And I think that knowledge itself is worth the 1 month test. And you'll have a good time. And we have a great community at fantasyguru.com, big time active Discord community. And I'm putting in bets for basketball. Jeff Mans as well, putting in bets for basketball. And speaking of Jeff Mans, make sure you catch him and Ray Flowers today, 2 p.m. Eastern, for the Elite Sports Show on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. And for all of you that listen to the Game Time Show, which was Sundays at 6 p.m. Eastern, that show has ended. But I thank you all again very much for tuning in every week. Hearing from you was great. It was a great time with Russell Clay. And yeah, it was just a fun season. So that show has concluded, but that's why we got this, baby. And that's why I'm going to talk to you right now about tonight's NBA slate. We've gotten a few pieces of news, and one of them I'm kind of happy with because I wasn't sure what to do with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander tonight. If you're playing on FanDuel it's the full 12 games, the full enchilada. If you're playing on DraftKings, it's 9. And that does make a little bit of a difference here because we have to see what ends up happening with the Los Angeles Lakers. I'm on Laker watch big time. I don't know if a lot of you saw the post-game comments from LeBron James at the locker room, but he kind of went off. I mean, look, the guys probably asked every single time, you're going to play back-to-backs, you're going to play back-to-backs, but the reporters have to ask that question. And LeBron turned up a little bit there. I'm 41 years old. I was born December 30th, 1984, 7.5 pounds, whatever it was. Yeah, I get he's annoyed answering those questions, but we also want to know. And by the way, not only do we want to know, but everybody else who's paid tickets wants to know if you, as a main attraction, is going to be out there on the court. But looking at LeBron and Luka Doncic, it wouldn't surprise me tonight for those playing on FanDuel. It wouldn't surprise me if they sat, and then we'll have to see Victor Wembanyama too, because that's going to open up a lot of value, especially on the Spurs side. Might actually, if both Luka and LeBron sit, it might actually create a little bit of a risk with some of their higher priced options, like a De'Aaron Fox, for instance. And we might want to go value there just to be safe in the event of the Spurs being able to just completely take them out. So with that in mind, let's talk about some of the other big impacts here that we've got. The biggest total, the highest total on the slate tonight. And this is a game, by the way, which will lead right into what I'm going to discuss for a few minutes. The Pelicans and the Hawks, two teams that have been playing at a very fast pace, both of them in the top 5 over the last 10 games. Don't only look for the season anymore. Start looking in increments. Look at the season and look at them in their last 10 games. I think at this point, injuries definitely something you'll have to keep in mind, but pace at this point needs to be more defined by a smaller sample size so we can catch those trends. I've been doing that a lot more over the last, I'd say, year, and that's been helping me out coming up with the bets that we've been betting, the props that we've been betting, finding the trends a little bit quicker too. So that's why, by the way, last night we hit the LeBron James bet against the New Orleans Pelicans. If you were looking at the full season or even at the beginning of the season, the Pelicans were bad defensively, they still are, but they were running at a slower pace. They are operating at a very fast pace. And they're very vulnerable on the glass too. And that's what we look for. For those that, by the way, wonder how the straw, or the soup gets stirred, or whatever that saying is, I end up going through those players and those teams that are in those fast-paced situations, because that'll create more rebounding opportunities among possessions. Again, why do I like betting rebound props the most? Not only do I feel like I understand them the most, but you could get multiple in one possession. I mean, you've seen it. Imagine if a guy like Dikembe Mutombo, rest in peace and power, was still around, where he'd get 3 or 4 offensive rebounds. We've seen that happen. A few rebounds in the same possession before the ball physically gets turned over. So that's why I like betting them. But like those tackle and assist props for football, sometimes the stat gods will take them away from you. So you got to be mindful of that going in. But looking at some of those teams, as I bring up my chart here that I wrote, looking at some of the teams that are the most vulnerable at allowing a lot of rebounds to opponents, those teams out there include the Wizards, which is why, by the way, I went with Wendell Carter. I don't always go Carter. That way, sometimes his rebounding can be up and down, but we were on a good trend for a few games of double-digit production, and the Wizards for the last few years have given up the most rebounds to opposing centers, and they've been playing pretty quickly lately too. So the pace boost also helps. But Washington, Dallas, Indiana, Miami's been vulnerable when it comes to giving up boards all year long. Atlanta, which is why, by the way, tonight I'm probably looking at New Orleans also on that list. I'm probably going to have some kind of rebounding prop from that Pelicans-Hawks game. Probably go on something on the lower side, but we'll have to wait and see, because we got to make sure that Trae Young is out before we start going crazy on guys like Dyson Daniels. But just saying it right there, fast-paced environment. Two teams that give up a lot of rebounds to opponents. And also, by the way, both teams are in the bottom 10 on average for team rebounding too. So that's also something I look at. So both of these teams, they're facing each other tonight, But the reason I went with the LeBron James bet is because LeBron was rebounding a lot better. I started to look at his rebounding chances. They slowly trickled up over the last few games. And in that fast pace going up against New Orleans, I figured that his ceiling would be a little bit higher, and he came through. I thought for a second, we were going to get it done in the first half, but he ended the first half at 6, slowed down in the second half, but still got there. But that's what I look at. Let's look at some of these other teams. Washington, fast pace. Dallas, pretty fast pace. Indiana, now running a little bit faster. Miami's been running fast. Sacramento's been running fast. Well, Sacramento kind of up and down, actually. Atlanta operating fast. Chicago operating fast. Cleveland operating fast. The Pelicans operating fast. There's a little bit of a correlation here that these fast-paced teams here are some of the most vulnerable on the glass to the opposition, and those are some of the teams I look to attack. And then there are the worst team rebounding teams that I said Atlanta and New Orleans were on. Indiana's been on there. We've been crushing them on the glass all year when it comes to bets. Toronto, which is a little bit surprising because we've seen, and Toronto's been dealing with Jakob being out, so maybe they've dropped a little bit. Denver's on the list too, and it's only going to get worse and worse for them at this point with Jokic out for the next month. And then the Phoenix Suns, who they don't know what the hell they're doing with their front court. So those teams are the most vulnerable. Even the Lakers, the Lakers don't give up a lot of rebounds to opponents, and they don't operate at a fast pace. But as a team rebounding team, they are not that good, although LeBron James has been better. And if we can continue to have that 6.5 rebound prop in certain situations, we're going to go after it. I don't expect him, by the way, tonight to be active. I really don't, because we haven't seen it. And so that's the way I feel. We've seen it very little. So I don't think that it's going to happen for LeBron James. Even Zion, we saw it maybe like once from too. But we're looking tonight when it comes to spend up options here. If he plays, I got to go with Luka Doncic if he plays, assuming LeBron James isn't going to play. But I'm starting to think he's going to be out. Now, Cade Cunningham does have a probable tag, but Cade Cunningham is going after the Chicago Bulls tonight. I attack the Chicago Bulls full force. They've got enough scoring where they can maybe stay in the game for a little while. And let's also not forget that Jalen Duren is going to be missing. So all those assists, not all of them, but a good amount of them, and dumps in the post to him, Cade Cunningham is going to benefit a little bit more from that. So if we don't want to figure out Luka, we're going to go to the top of the board with Cade Cunningham. I did it the other night. We're going to do it tonight, and we're not going to mess around. We can look at Tyrese Maxey too. I thought that the Sixers were going to be crushing the Nuggets the other night. And I was actually talking with my coworker here at fantasyguru.com, Mike the Beard, Mike Sillo, and he and I were talking about Tyrese Maxey because he was really pumped for Maxey. And I said to him, dude, if they're going to be crushing Denver, they're going to rest these guys and they're going to really chop his minutes, and he's very expensive. He wasn't worried about that, and then the game stayed close. So good call by him there. But that's a big decision we're going to have to make for the Sixers tonight, because the Sixers are battling the Washington Wizards, who also played last night. So that's a big decision. I think Joel Embiid is still in a volume producer position, even now that he's in that 9K range. The big question is Maxey going to be able to hit value? And I think Maxey is a very good GPP option. A lot of people are going to see them going up against Washington, and they're going to be scared. If Washington can shoot somewhat like they did last night early on, then this is going to be a game and both of these guys are going to hit. So this is a good, obviously with it being 12 games, it's a decent double center night. In fact, if we go down to centers for a little bit, let's just talk about the value. It was actually easier for me to figure out value guys instead of the higher priced guys, because some of them are questionable. Some of them are in decent spots. I don't know if we can trust, but from the value standpoint, you've got guys like Diabate, you've got Neemias Queta, who's in a good spot. Paul Reed came through for us the other night. He's in a good spot. Jock Landale has been someone that if he remains in that 4K price point, we can look at him. But those other guys that I mentioned, Paul Reed is going to be in a big spot tonight. He and Vucevic are very good centers to look at in that matchup. Again, the pace is very big there. We've seen Detroit run a little bit more up tempo too. So I don't think for the Chicago side, the pace down is going to be majorly impactful. No Josh Giddey, too. So that opens up more value when it comes to Chicago, like an Ayo Dosunmu. That's where he comes in and is valuable in a matchup like this. No Duren, and they have other big guys that could definitely help matters. But at the same time, even though they have other big guys that could be helpful, they still are really missing Duren for not only what he could bring in the post defensively, but also what he can bring from a passing standpoint while in the post. Looking at some of the other options here, I mentioned Joel Embiid is someone we can look at. Power forward is going to be a big decision too. And I'll give you one guy I'm looking at power forward tonight, and that's Chet Holmgren. I still think, even with the Thunder being where they're at, no Isaiah Hartenstein in that matchup. And now we actually just found out a little bit ago that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, like I mentioned, is questionable. So if he ends up sitting in this matchup, all of a sudden, Chet Holmgren becomes a majorly impactful piece against a very crappy but very fast-moving Utah Jazz team. Let me just say this. As of now, even before the Shai Gilgeous-Alexander injury note that he's questionable now, it was an 18.5-point spread. 18.5 points. Big number there. Not a football game even. Big number for NBA. But when it comes to the Thunder, no Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, all of a sudden I'm more interested in Jalen Williams at that $7K price tag that he hasn't been hitting. I'm even more interested than Chet Holmgren than I am right now. But I still think Chet Holmgren is in a good spot to produce, especially when lined up in the post. Yusuf Nurkic hasn't been stopping anybody. So Chet Holmgren, mid-price power forward on a night where you're probably going to have to look to spend up there. Or you can maybe pray that Peyton Watson's able to get to the best of the Celtics, which is possible because Denver's got their own questionables with Jokic out and a bunch of questionables. That's going to open up value right there. So make sure tonight you go to fantasyguru.com. Let's build in Discord between 6 and 7 p.m. Eastern and then watch along Wednesday. I'll be in Discord for a little bit talking about the games, talking strategy, talking about what I'm seeing on the court, and also about what all of you out there want to talk about too, because we got a new Fensty's Basketball Diaries podcast chapter dropping tomorrow on the good old FG fantasyguru.com. Now, let me welcome in. We got to make this so we get ratings here, a better looking program than my Shrek ass. Let's bring in Prince Charming himself, the Bosco, Rich Maletto. What's going on, Rich? How you doing?
You do not look like Shrek. Oh my gosh, Fensty. Come on now.
Dude, I mean, come on. I mean, look at me. You know, I'm no George Clooney over here. You know what I'm saying?
No, but I mean, I guess you kind of are like Michael Myers, but he's not even really Shrek. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yes. Maybe if I shaved my head, I'd be Dr. Evil in a volcano filled with liquid.
Now that you could pull off. That will get you the glasses. And that I'm all for. I think that would be a great Halloween night. You know what? Now that you got a new little one, there's a Halloween idea for you.
Oh man, that
you and so Mini-Me.
That would have been so great for this past Halloween because he's gonna have like 8 times more hair than I do by the time Halloween.
Well, you can get the little thing, to put over it to make it look bald. But I mean, oh my gosh,
you're good, man. You're good. That's why we have you at fantasyguru.com. Halloween tips and fantasy football. Rich, again, thanks so much for joining me here to talk football. We got the playoffs. I was just talking about all the content we have at fantasyguru.com. Jeff Mans has rankings up for the week, but also for the entire postseason. And I was talking about our best ball contest too, and that we have going on with drafters. I entered and I kind of fat fingered a little bit. And I'll say this, I don't care. I don't know if you've been in a draft yet. I was in the best ball draft though. And in the first round, like 4th or 5th overall, I accidentally took Matthew Stafford.
That's not bad.
It's not bad. And that's what I want to start with you here, man. Rams at this point, they've lost against the Panthers before, and now they're 10.5-point favorites on the road here. Let me ask you, do you think that there's any chance that Carolina can beat them again?
Look, there's always a chance, right? But I mean, let's be honest about the percentages here. My confidence would be 90% or more Rams win. This is different that it's the playoffs. I think Carolina's probably just full of themselves that they got into the playoffs. I mean, I don't think they had any aspirations to win the Super Bowl. The Rams do. So I expect the Rams to play all out here and put this game away early. I really do. So there's always a chance. I mean, I don't think the Steelers go anywhere. I don't think the Panthers go anywhere, but I'm never going to tell anybody there's no chance. I mean, I have seen far stranger things to happen. And regarding, Stafford, as I was finding my little parking spot here, he went number 1 in a draft they were doing on the radio. 7 teams. Now, they were doing 2 quarterbacks, so that does change things a little bit. But their point was he has the best opportunity to play 4 games, which matters when you're doing the season-long stuff. Now, I mean,
Yes.
if it's a best ball for just the week at the time, totally different story. But if
Set him and leave him in best ball, it's perfect.
Right. So, I mean, if you're looking for someone, there's not a whole lot of options. There's a reason Puka and Stafford are so high up on anybody and everybody's rankings, because the consensus is the Rams can go to the Super Bowl, thereby having the most games of the teams out there, right? If the AFC is kind of wide open, you could argue maybe the Jags are in the same boat, right? But honestly, Fensty, I would say first round pick for Stafford isn't terrible, man.
No, I appreciate
would
that.
rather have Puka maybe in a setup like that.
Yeah,
but,
he was gone by that point.
Exactly. Yeah, but you know what? You just ruined that dude's stack. I guarantee you that person was cussing you up and down all night long over that. So kudos.
That's what I started doing. And I also realized, oh yeah, I got to get a running, because I kept going receiver. And I'm like, oh yeah, I got to get a running back. So I kept splitting the dual backfield. So I'm sure people were just pissed off at the entire draft, man. But,
works for me, man.
dude, that's what you get, man. And you know what? With that, at the end of the day, if you're going to fade running backs in best ball drafts like that, eventually you got to stop focusing on getting the unit and just be able to get someone that has a chance of getting 10 carries.
Everybody's looking to stack, right?
Right.
Like at some point, either you got to be the guy. I guess there's 2 ways to look at it. You could focus on trying to get your stacks and take whatever stacks are left over, right? But I tell you what, in a Drafters Best Ball I did this year, the only lineup that cashed for me is the only lineup I didn't focus on stacks. It was the very first lineup I did. Now, it didn't win much. It went $35. So, I mean, I didn't even get double up on my interest,
Oh, dude,
right?
that's like 2 Chipotle dinners with guac, man. That's awesome.
Well, it's still decent. I agree. I'm not griping. I'm just saying it's interesting to me that I know what it takes to win these tournaments, and the stacking is a must. However, everybody knows that. So at some point in time, it's kind of like, 20 years ago, everybody knew you wanted that third starting running back for the flex spot. So running backs started going way earlier than they should have, right? And those of us that were savvy saying, I'm going to pivot. I distinctly remember the year this happened, because I got Julio Jones in like the 8th round or something like that as he was coming off a down season. Well, he ended up being a staple. I had 4 receivers and I could only start 3 every week. And I was winning all over the place, band-aiding running backs. And it was simply because everybody did the same thing. There was so much value in these other areas that you're stupid or silly if you don't honestly take a shot at these things. So, I almost enjoy being the guy. It's like, I'm going to ruin everybody's stacks.
Yes, that's why you don't follow him on Twitter.
That's right.
Fantasy Bosco.
That's right.
But follow all his work, Rich. By the way, I want to just bring this up before we dive deeper into football, because you also are one of the people that head up our racing content at fantasyguru.com. And I talk all about the MVP plan, because the MVP plan doesn't only involve basketball, but it also involves racing too. And we got basketball hot and heavy now. So I'm all rah basketball. And I mentioned what else we have to offer. But dude, before you know it, in the blink of an eye, Daytona is going to be here. So I was just telling everyone about the fire that we have between Watch Along Wednesdays for DFS NBA in the Discord, NBA bets constantly. Pappy Man's now in there. I also saw a certain Gen 4-5 in there too, crushing a Deuce McBride prop, where I'm like, yeah, I can see that going over. It only went over by like 18 points. So congrats to Gen 4-5 there. But tell us what we have coming up when it comes to the racing side of the MVP plan.
And you're not wrong. Racing's, I mean, literally the week after the Super Bowl, we're going to be talking racing and doing lineups, right? So the plan is to basically continue what we've done the past couple of years. So there will be, it might be a more condensed overview article this year. Both Armando and Sean are like, hey, scale back a little bit. You write plenty. We don't need to burn you out a little bit. So, but the overview article, I really kind of enjoyed how I did it last year, kind of highlighting guys to watch before qualifying. I want to do a little something different with that because there is ways to bet on qualifying. And it was frustrating for me in that guys I highlighted said, hey, we don't want these guys to qualify too well because these are really some good picks for the week. Well, when they qualify too well, now they become, I don't want to say bad chalk, but the problem is you're exposed on a bad finish, right? So whereas it's always nice to have the guy you like starting 20th going, we're going to get all these free bonus points, right? So I'm finding that if I'm going to be that on point on who's fast for the weekend, maybe we should start betting on qualifying because I've seen a lot of people betting top 5 qualifier, pole position, that sort of thing. Good odds. I mean, we've talked about odds before in racing. So there'll be a little tweak to that maybe. We'll have an article for each of the race series. Mark Hogan's going to be helping out as far as I know with that like he has in the past. And, of course, we'll be doing the Race Guru Thunder Hour. And I love the MVP plan. You're spot on, Fensty. It covers everything but football and Major League Baseball, right? Like that's the only thing it doesn't cover. And that's betting, that's DFS, that's Discord, that's all of it. So, I mean, for a very small minimal fee for the year, you get all the sports covered. So in these laws where you're a big football guy and football's not going on, or you're a basketball guy and basketball's not going on, so on, there's options. So I love that you're all about it.
Yeah, man. I mean, again, it's just I understand that this fan base, our audience, it's very football friendly, and we're proud of that. We love it. We both do football content throughout the year and everything. We love that it's number one, but there's more. And that's where a lot of you get sad after football ends and you're like, see you later. It doesn't have to be that way. That's right. And you could try it out for the month, by the way. I know that signing up for something, committing a year is daunting. Try it out for a month for literally $60. And I said this before, and I'll say it again as the audience changes frequently. If you don't benefit financially, and I know it's a little bit of a cop-out, if it doesn't pay off after that month financially, you will learn something. You will learn how to bet. You will learn what to look for in the respective sports. And we're seeing more of our subscribers now. I see it in the other Discords. Try out other sports. And it's great to see, man. And you head up NASCAR, I head up basketball. And that's why we always want to make sure that there's another way to win, and that's becoming an MVP. And speaking of an MVP, let's get with the 2 MVP teams from the respective conferences, Rich. Who do you think are going to make the Super Bowl, and who's going to win it?
Boy, that's tough. I tell you what. I had to get notes. I made notes today.
Ooh, I like that. Old school, writing it down. Old school.
So I don't want to renege. I have been pushing Houston. I've been pushing Houston because of the odds. I think Jacksonville deserves to be in that same conversation. I like the fact, and Tyler pointed this out yesterday on the coaching live stream. Jacksonville's defense has been pretty staunch here the last month of the season.
Can I stop you for a second? I know it's rude to interrupt you, so I'm sorry for being a jerk and being rude. I want to let everybody know, because I let everybody know this on Elite Sports Game Time last week on SiriusXM. Rich Maletto saved one of my seasons by telling me on this damn stream that the Jacksonville Jaguars defense, they're out there. Why they're out there at the time, I feel like it'd been maybe a week or two after the bye where you started to see something. You said pick them up. You could probably keep them. You said the same thing with Seattle too earlier in the year, but Jacksonville more recently, pick them up and enjoy them for the rest of the year. And they freaking came through. So I said it on SiriusXM, and you mentioned them, and I want to just say again, great call by you regarding the Jaguars defense. I didn't have to worry about that anymore after your suggestion.
This is what you just described, though, Fensty. I wish more people would do, because at the end of the year, they're like, well, who you streaming? I'm like, I'm sorry, guys. I kind of like quit paying attention to defenses. And they're like, why? So because I hammer this every year. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I pushed a couple of defenses. I don't chase the matchups because weird things happen. I remember nobody wanted the Browns because the 49ers were a bad matchup. Yet the Browns put up some of the best points as a defense that day. I don't roster management is so much what fantasy football is about, and yet all we talk about is specific players. We rarely talk about how to build your roster, and we do it at Fantasy Guru. I don't want to say we don't because we push this hard. You do, Ray does, Jeff does, but I'm saying as an overall in the industry, there's not enough of a focus on what you can do to minimize your headaches so that you're not pulling your hairs out and making bad decisions all the time. You know, I hear multiple hosts that I kind of fall in line with in that regard, and they openly admit, I don't want to make these decisions hard. I don't want to have a bunch of decisions. When you have to worry about picking up and dropping somebody because you're trying to hold a defense or you're holding a tight end, it makes life miserable. I will take that 4-game Seattle gave us right before the week of the playoffs and take the games they gave us after that instead of chasing 8 points, 4 more points than what I got for 1 week to worry about dropping, picking up. Like I can't understand why we want to make things more difficult on ourselves. And Jacksonville, I'm glad that worked, Fensty. I am so glad that worked out and somebody, took the advice. I didn't because I already had Seattle about all the leagues I had because they had an early bye week. Like I target these teams with the early bye week. I'm like, and look, it doesn't always work. You might have grabbed the Eagles like this isn't working. So you make a change. But Seattle and Jacksonville, I don't know how many times I went and looked like, oh, snap, they got 12 points. Okay. Yeah, like I said, it was out of sight, out of mind because for me, I'm okay falling on that sword. I want all the roster spots I can get to load up on receivers and running backs. That's it. And I'll even carry a second quarterback with the way the NFL has been and the injuries and stuff. But you got to have a roster spot if you're going to do that.
Right.
Carrying 2 defenses, 2 kickers. It drives me. I mean, I know the folks in Discord be like, oh, no, I should. You do not understand the headaches you're making for yourself. And here's a news flash. The best at picking lineups, those of us who basically make it idiot proof, okay, with not having good benches, so to speak, 85%, 87%, making the right lineup picks. Okay, that means having the perfect lineup or what would have been the perfect scoring lineup. That's the best of us out there. The average is 75 to 80%. So that means you're only going to be right 3 out of 4 times, which is pretty good. Well, why chase that other one time and trying to go 4 for 4? Take the 3 out of 4 and minimize the headaches and the disasters because what's going to happen, you're going to drop a guy. Oh, man, I didn't get him back. I thought I could get him back through the bye week. And then that dickhead Rich Maletto snagged him as a free agent Sunday night before he got flipped over to waivers, and now I don't have him. Yeah, you made your own headache. You made your own bed. So kudos to you, Fensty, because I don't know too many people that heeded that advice. Much respect, bro.
And I kind of had your mentality too, because a few weeks after you said to pick them up, they go into Denver, and I'm thinking, okay, like that was the one time where but then I said, wait a minute, the offense is playing a bit better, and the defense has been good. So you know what? Let's see. Probably Denver's not expecting them to show up. The offense has been, good enough lately. It's been better. And I ran it back, and they went into Denver and freaking made a statement. Amazing.
Like I said, the matchups are misleading all the time. If it was so easy to base everything on matchups, Fensty, then how come we have so many people so upset and pissed off when so-and-so didn't pop when they had an amazing matchup, or so-and-so went off on their bench when they had a terrible matchup? Perfect example. The Cowboys' run defense had gotten so much better after Quinnen Williams arrived, right? Quinnen Williams was in that game against Washington. Through the first quarter and a half, Washington's run game was trash. What happened? Bill ended up putting up almost 20 points for a junior fantasy lineup because he ended up breaking one and had a couple of touchdowns. And almost nobody was playing him because it was a bad matchup on paper because Quinnen Williams was back.
Right. By the way, we talked about the run game here. What was it, 2 weeks ago? And I had said to you, look, man, I mean, they could try to establish the run with Javonte Williams. And they did. And I bet the over. After we had our conversation 2 weeks ago, I bet the over on 15 and a half rushing attempts. Immediately he had 13. He then gets hurt. So I ended up being right, but then wrong afterwards, giving it away.
But that's a perfect example of, this is what I keep saying, fantasy football is more like poker. Just because you lost on pocket aces last time, does that mean you're going to fold it this next time because you lost last time with pocket aces? Or are you going to continue to play pocket aces and it's a bad beat when you don't win? Are you going to continue to take the pocket aces when the board shows it right to the river and yeah, you lost on the river, so you're not going to do it next time? You can't operate that way, right? Like, you have to understand, it's the same thing when everybody wants to start benching these guys like A.J. Brown halfway through the season. I'm picking them up. I'm chasing them in trades. I'm grabbing these guys. Why? Because I think they're better than what they're performing, and eventually the production will catch up. It's probably going to catch up in a bad matchup game when everybody benches them.
Right.
So I'll snag them, and I'll use them. I'm using my guys.
Yes. By the way, we were talking a lot about players and putting your trust in players, and those that ended up benching Justin Jefferson the final week when he finally comes through for you. By the way, you mentioned poker. I'll just say this, and I have a feeling we're going to agree on this. I used to love watching the World Series of poker.
Me too.
I know it was after the fact, but
I know,
like
but it
when
was
Greg Raymer and Chris Moneymaker were like in the final table and everything. When who's the guy that talked a lot of crap? Mike Matusow. Mouth. He always talked a lot of crap to everybody out there. And like, dude, I loved watching that. Here's the river. They got the two.
I don't know why it was so fun to watch poker, but it was, dude. It was.
Like bowling. I mean, Pete Weber made it fun for bowling.
Dude, Pete Weber. And you know what? Now the way they're doing the fingertip and the two-hand stuff, and we're getting some of these younger folks, they aren't as like charismatic, but I tell you what, I was enjoying some professional bowling the other night. I'm not going to lie. I think I went from professional bowling to professional bull riding, and I was enjoying all of it, man. I'm not going to lie.
Does Rick Barnes still dominate in professional bowling? Because he was like, or Chris Barnes or Rick Barnes, one of the two. Because he was like 12, 13 years ago, Pete Weber's like adversary.
Right. I want to say, there was like, I don't want to say changing the guard, but they were interviewing him. And he was talking about this other young buck that was, man, he was fun to watch. And I can't remember his name. So I feel like we're kind of at that same transition of 12 to 15 years ago with Weber and him. Like, because I remember them talking about, because they even brought up Weber. And he talked about, because, you know, they had a rivalry, but it turned out they were actually really good friends.
Right.
Like they became good friends anyway. And so I remember hearing and talking about that. I'll have to go see if I can find the interview.
I used to watch bowling all the time. I mean, I bowled in high school. I was the varsity captain of my high school bowling team. Yeah, man, I know. It's very weird. It's not something I brag about all the time.
Yeah, but it's kind of cool.
It is kind of cool. It is cool. But I watched Norm Duke all the time. I was watching those guys.
Oh, Norm Duke
versus Pete Weber. Who do you think you are? I am. So who do you think's going to make the Super Bowl and win it?
I tell you what, you push me against a rock in a hard place. Give me the Rams. Give me the Texans.
Oh, okay.
I will give a shout out to the Jaguars. I think it's 100% possible that whoever wins the Eagles 49ers game can come out of that game. That game I think is probably the most interesting to watch this week. So if it's not the Rams, my money is on the winner of that game, Eagles or 49ers. But I gut shot call here, Rams, Texans.
What teams do you think, for those playing in one and done contests, what teams should we actually use up? Because immediately I think you just mentioned it with the Eagles 49ers matchup and also the Bills Jaguars matchup with a 52.5 total. I mean, what teams should we be burning this week?
It's funny. I'm all over it. I'm with you. Bills. Okay. I am not impressed with the Bills. They may win. They could win. They could hit a switch and get better. But I'm loading up on Bills. James Cook's probably a rougher matchup with the way the Jags defense, has been playing. But Josh Allen in a one and done, I'd be using Josh Allen everywhere. I'd be considering ETN because it's a good matchup on the ground, and the Jaguars haven't been running as much. So I feel like that's kind of an interesting one to roll with because you may not really want to use ETN later on in the year. What was the other one? You know, depending on how you think that Eagles game is going to go, Barkley, CMC.
Yeah.
Only one of them's going to advance.
Wow, and this is where McCaffrey. Wow.
Right. So you're going to have to pick your poison. And depending on who you think is in advance, which is why it helps in a one and done to kind of map out how you think it's going to go, which I'm terrible at.
If you don't have the Eagles and the 49ers in your Super Bowl, and this is, by the way, for all of you playing in one and done fantasy football playoff contest, you have to make a stand. We're making a stand here. You have to plant your flag and stick with it and commit to the bit. If you don't have the Eagles or the 49ers in your Super Bowl, using both McCaffrey and Barkley this week, I'm
Makes
okay,
sense.
and I will co-sign
Makes a lot of
that.
sense. Yep, yes. I 100% agree.
Not if you have them in the NFC Championship. If you have one of them in the Super Bowl, save it. If you don't, then use them both.
Oh, and here's something else I will suggest for one and done leagues. At quarterback, pick a conference. Do not go back and forth.
I agree.
You can do the same. You could do the same thing at tight end if you want. The reason for that, we don't know if predicting these games was easy, Vegas would be broke. Right? I mean, let's be honest.
They'd
be broke.
It's true.
So if you stick to, all right, I'm rolling with Purdy or Hurts this week for exactly what we talked about. Okay. I know one of them's going to advance, one's not. Okay. So pick one. Well, the one you picked ended up advancing. You're out of it. That's okay. Stick to the NFC. Go to one of the other quarterbacks that are still available on the NFC side. This way, when you get to the Super Bowl, you assuredly have at least one quarterback to use and tight end.
No, that's great. That's great advice there. By the way, speaking of tight ends, for those that are playing, let's just say in one and dones, what tight end should we be burning? Someone like a Goddard maybe, or what? Like who would you suggest?
Goddard or Kittle?
Yeah.
Now Kittle's got a bad matchup. Kittle's got a rough matchup. The Eagles have been good against the tight end. So again, though, to your point, if you have the Eagles in the Super Bowl, I'm okay using Goddard because I'm going to use one conference side, so I'll pick remaining what's left.
Sure.
But if the Eagles lose, you still have Kittle in a better matchup. So that's why I would lean kind of on the Goddard side. But same concept for me. For quarterback and tight end, I'm going to pick a conference and I'm going to ride it, and I'm going to take what's left over at the Super Bowl.
For one and done for tight end, especially this week since it's so tough, it's really for me, I'm a couple of other tight ends in the mix for this week. We mentioned the two coming out of the Eagles 49ers matchup. I mean, Colston Loveland is someone that you can use in one and done this week. And also, he doesn't always get the most snaps and he's been banged up, but when he's on the field he's thrown to, you could look at a Dalton Kincaid to try to get an extra piece of that 52.5 total.
Or as silly as it sounds, go get a Steeler tight end because Washington's out. So it's only Jonnu or Freiermuth, and both of them have been used a little bit. If they score points, I can almost guarantee you one of them is going to get the touchdown, whether it's Jonnu rushing it or it's Freiermuth in the end zone.
Because it's Arthur Smith.
Because it's Arthur Smith. So I mean, if you want to talk about tight ends to target one and done, and you're not, there's one example where I wouldn't necessarily stick to a conference. I would have no problem using Jonnu Smith or Freiermuth, calling it a day. Then next week hitting the reset button and determining which conference I want to target because I'm that confident the Steelers don't advance. If the Steelers advance, I will come on here and eat raw snow or something.
I just don't see it happen. Anyone that's not a Steelers fan doesn't think the Texans.
I am a Steelers fan, and I'm telling you they ain't gonna do it.
Wait, I thought you were a Browns fan.
I messed up, bro. I was at.
Wait a second.
So yes. My dad had me in Steeler outfits at 6 weeks old. He's from Pennsylvania. Okay. I grew up in Cleveland. So as a young kid, Penn State Steelers. Well, as you get older and make friends, when I say older, like 5, 6, and you're making friends in the neighborhood, and it turns out the little condos at the front of the neighborhood that a few Brown players rent out during the football season and their kids go to school with you and all your friends are Browns fans and it's the 1980s and the dog pound just got invented, you found yourself being a Browns fan. Well, then it's like, but you were a Steelers fan. So I memorized stats for both teams. And at 6 years old, I told everyone I was going to play for both at the same time. And they're like, well, they play each other twice a year. What are you going to do? I'll play for the home team. Duh.
Wow. You learn something new every day. I did not know that. So Rich straddles, I don't want to say the fence or anything, but Rich right there with two teams there gives him a better chance of maybe getting another Super Bowl now that I know you're a Steelers fan.
The Steelers got theirs. The Browns will. I'm not sure we'll ever see one there, bro.
Dude, I root for the Jets. I know what that's like. The Jets haven't made the playoffs in 15 years, man. Made the playoffs in 15 years. So, you can have that life. Don't have that life or anything like that. Have the Giants life who are now deciding between Harbaugh and Kevin Stefanski, which as a Jets fan, so insanely jealous, and I wish that the Jets could be in on either coach.
The Browns, if the Browns were smart, they'd go after Harbaugh with everything they've got. The only way to kick the curse of the move is to go get a Raven and bring him in-house and start winning. If Jimmy Haslam had any sense at all, and he doesn't, he would throw the whole everything, the whole kitchen sink and everything at John Harbaugh and get him to come to Cleveland.
There you go. Rich Maletto, Justin Fensterman hanging out with you as we do on Wednesdays here on Fantasy Sports Daily. Catch all of Rich's work at fantasyguru.com. Yours truly at Fensty Sports on X and Instagram, and also at the good old FG. Watch Along Wednesday tonight. We'll be there starting at about 7:10 p.m. Eastern, watching all of the games in the early window and commenting on them, leading right out to the podcast. For the Bosco, I'm the Fensty. Ray Flowers back tomorrow. Same time, same place, same channel. Fantasy Sports Daily right here on the Elite Plus Network, powered by Fantasy Guru.